DJ I shakeleti love. This love when I wanna get another one, I go take and do waiting I love, waiting you love, oh. No be waiting I love, oh. Waiting I love, I go do what we love, I go. Go no be vodka. Mr. Money Changer, but when I know the ways that Mr.
You let a yum 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 yum. Na yela pere matina yela pese. You let a yum 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 yum. Na yela pere muna kapela chora kakisa bayari yela pere balungna bayre tupa ani imping tuna asanta tapage bayu tugtele masankele yura babantu biyara bayari yela pere bongna bayre tupa ani asikulja tuna ikina kine kille sikulja kine titatia undile sikulja tia satasua zadle sikulja sua korakua kole sikulja kua sarasua sole sikulja sua tinayela peri chora kakisa bayari hala peri bongna bayre tupa ani sikulja tupa ani sikulja tupa.
That dream of studying and working abroad has been made much accessible to everyone, including you. So worry less about how you're going to get there, because we always make it happen. This is Staff Finders Ghana Limited. We offer a highly professional guidance and support system, both in your university and visa application process. Staff Finders Ghana Limited is a highly trusted agency of the University of the West of Scotland, one of the largest modern universities offering a range of academic, social, and sporting facilities. You can apply for undergraduate, master's and PhD in business and creative industries, education, social sciences, computing, engineering, physical sciences, health, and life sciences. Come through Staff Finders, and for your studies, you get yourself a laptop or a £500 gift voucher. Call on +233 598 4888 04. WhatsApp on +44 7404 711 049. Send us an email or visit our website for more information.
You let a yum 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 yum. Na yela pere matina yela pese. You let a yum 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 yum. Na yela pere muna kapela chora kakisa bayari yela pere balungna bayre tupa ani imping tuna asanta tapage bayu tugtele masankele yura babantu biyara bayari yela pere bongna bayre tupa ani asikulja tuna ikina kine kille sikulja kine titatia undile sikulja tia satasua zadle sikulja sua korakua kole sikulja kua sarasua sole sikulja sua tinayela peri chora kakisa bayari hala peri bongna bayre tupa ani sikulja tupa ani sikulja tupa.
All right, it's yet another Saturday afternoon. It's 2 p.m., 5 minutes past 2 Eastern time. I'm located out here in the Boston area. And I guess it's 6 p.m. in Ghana. We are here in the diaspora, but we are deeply concerned about things happening in Ghana. And so we've dedicated every Saturday afternoon to having a conversation about political happenings in Ghana and other matters related to the country's progress as far as democracy is concerned. As usual, I'm here with people who are equally concerned about happenings in Ghana. Dr. Zita Seshi is a sociologist who is based in Canada. Shay is joining me as usual as one of my panelists. So at the moment, she's the only person that I have available. And then as the conversation proceeds, some of my panelists will join us. All right, Zita. Good afternoon.
Hi. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. How are you?
Yeah, great. Well, I'm expecting Oreku to join us. I think he was having some technical difficulty setting up, but hopefully he's able to get that addressed and then join us as we proceed. So today we have three main topics to talk about. We're going to talk about the LI that was sent to Parliament, basically to enact a law that would exempt members of Parliament from the ridiculous traffic situation in Accra. They want to be able to skip the line and get to wherever they are going in a timely fashion. So they sent an LI to Parliament to enact a law that would give them the licenses to put police-type sirens on top of their cars. And then when they turn them on, everyone on the streets of Accra can pave way for them to get to wherever they are going in a timely fashion. So there was a public outrage over that bill, and the Minister for Transportation decided to pull it from Parliament. Then we'll proceed to talk about the Afrobarometer report. There's some data out there based on a survey conducted by Afrobarometer. That is an institution that is committed to essentially measuring the outcomes of democracy across Africa. And they have come up with a report concerning the state of democracy in Ghana. And then we would get to talk about that as well. And our final topic is going to be about local initiative in. Before I complete that talk, let me bring Oreku on stage. So Oreku Ampofo is a policy analyst, also based in Canada. So today it's a Canada bias. I had just introduced our first topic of discussion, and then the first two topics of discussion, and then the third one is going to be about the role of local initiatives in local government. Basically, talking about how are local individuals or groups within a locality expected to help in the course of development in the locality? Do they have the right to initiate certain developmental projects? And this question has arisen because of news that a chief was arrested for taking the initiative to repair a road that was basically unmotorable. So we'll talk about that. But I think the Afrobarometer survey is a good segue into a conversation about local initiatives in development. So, ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah. All right. So let me play a video. It's a news report related to the LI that was sent to Parliament. It will set a background for us going to the conversation.
Of the chief of Nahinso for undertaking roadworks without
Okay, this is not the right one. This is the right one.
Minister for Transport. This LI sought to has officially withdrawn the controversial legislative instrument, LI, on behalf of the Minister for Transport. This LI sought to grant members of parliament, that's MPs, judges and ministers, the privilege to use sirens and be exempt them from speed limits while performing their official duties. The following report has more.
City TV, now Channel 1 TV, initiated the War Against Indiscipline campaign to promote road discipline and ensure adherence to the road traffic regulations. In the course of the exercise, the former Member of Parliament for Kede, Kwabena Ohime Tinyase, was arrested for flouting the road traffic regulations. Similarly, the Member of Parliament for Nshiaeso, Dr. Stephen Amwa, was apprehended by the police for flouting the road traffic regulations. Consequently, the government laid before Parliament on June 14 a legislative instrument to amend the road traffic regulations, offering members of Parliament, together with other state officials, the opportunity to use sirens and also be exempted from the speed limit in the course of their duties.
Honourable members, the Road Traffic Amendment Regulation 2024 is accordingly laid and referred to the Subsidiary Legislation Committee for consideration and report to the House. The Committee on Transport could support the Committee of Subsidiary Legislation with whatever material they have in order to enrich the report that will be submitted to the House.
However, the Speaker, Alban Bagbin, while delivering a lecture at the University of Ghana on private members' bills, denied knowledge of any legislative instrument before the House which seeks to offer lawmakers the opportunity to use sirens and also be exempted from the speed limits while carrying out their official duties.
Starting from yesterday, I heard on news that there's a bill in Parliament trying to give members of Parliament some, what do you call it, sirens, and also no speed limit. I mean, this social media thing, there's nothing like that before Parliament. There's nothing like that before Parliament. And so I thought maybe something was being done behind my desk. So I started calling all over, and all my directors said no, they have not seen anything like that. I have the responsibility of admitting many of these things. Sometimes they may elude me, but I haven't seen any such bill. Then later on, I was told it was a regulation that Parliament was amended. We don't amend regulations. We don't have the power by the Constitution to amend regulations or instruments. We don't have. So to start with, I just told the people that no, that one there can't be true.
In an interaction with journalists, the Member of Parliament for Boko Central, Mahama Yariga, also waded into the discussion, urging the government to be focused on ensuring an efficient and effective public transport system.
Those of us in the political class, ministers, deputy ministers, government officials, we are responsible for delivering to the public an effective and efficient public transport system. A good road network that enables people to get to work and get back home in good time at less cost in terms of fuel burning and etc. We have woefully failed in our responsibility to do that. And there's huge traffic in town. People are spending their meager salaries on fuel and diesel to transport themselves home. And instead of us concentrating on solving that problem for the public, we are seeking to exempt ourselves from this suffering that the members of the public, who are the taxpayers on whose back we are all being paid, we are seeking to exempt ourselves from that suffering. I believe that is the crux of the matter.
Following the public backlash, the Minister for Local Government and Rural Development, Martin J. Mensah Kosa, withdrew the LI on behalf of the Minister for Transport.
Mr. Speaker, I like to move that the Road Traffic Amendment Regulation 2024, which was laid on the Friday, 14 June 2024, be withdrawn. Mr. Speaker, this has become necessary based on extensive engagement with leadership. It is so withdrawn, Mr. Speaker. There are other allies that have been laid that the public is still not happy about. I will encourage them to withdraw those ones as well. Mr. Speaker, while the Minister of Trade is here, the ally that he laid on cement is also not, the public is not happy. We also come and withdraw yours as well.
I'm a bit disappointed that my respected minority leader had to issue a statement on the same subject matter. I think it would have been in good taste if that statement had not been issued. Maybe I'll leave it there.
Additionally, the government presented the Ewoya Lithium and Bauxite Agreement before the House.
Mining this agreement.
All right. Okay. So, I mean, we have a full conception of what transpired there with respect to this bill. And Zita, I think we have had a previous session where we discussed this issue related with sirens. And it emerged that even pastors are given these lights to put on their cars in order to ease their way through traffic. This only came into light when Hobson Adoye was complaining that they had applied for the lights for their presidential candidate, Alain Chermantin, but they were denied. So he was actually complaining that, an injustice had been done them because even pastors have those sirens. Well, the good thing is that they have pulled the bill, and this is as a result of the outrage expressed by the public. Again, is this result emerging out of what transpired in Kenya? Is it the Kenya effect that is going on here? So, I mean, Zita, you take it from there with respect to that issue, but then we would discuss this issue in the broader context of our politics and what we expect of our parliamentarians.
I mean, I don't think it's as a result of what is happening in Kenya. I just feel like this issue is long overdue to be addressed, but the way it's been addressed is not what is expected, be it the bill or amendment or whatever has been withdrawn or was never in parliament is not the focus. It's the fact that there are people belonging to the political class and people who are even powerful have the ability to illegally have or legally, I'm not sure how they get it, to get sirens to be able to cross through traffic and not just experience what the ordinary person is experiencing. And so whilst preparing for today's session, I was watching Joy News, and I don't remember who the speaker was, but I did agree with his thought process that, they need to clamp down on even politicians. Of course, they can make considerations for, high profile personals like our president and our vice president to be able to navigate freely, but by and large, for member of parliaments and ministers of state to have the siren to be able to skip traffic when we know that in Ghana, even when it comes to ambulance, they don't usually want to give ambulance. People are in critical health conditions and they are not. Ambulance struggle despite the fact that they have the siren going, and motorists need to give way for the ambulance hopefully carrying somebody in a health condition, a critical health condition, to cross to. They don't do it because they're under the assumption, it's not the ambulance is just using that not to stay in traffic. There's this assumption that people are always cutting corners in Ghana when it comes to navigating traffic. And I think this is what this whole issue highlights, that there are a group of people that tend to get away with the experiences that the ordinary people endure in Ghana. So for me, I don't think anything happening in Ghana have had that strong ripple effect in Ghana. I do not believe that the Ghanaians are upset enough. I do not believe that Ghanaians are watching keenly on what is going on. And just to segue, I saw a video on TikTok where a Nigerian is in Ghana, going to the market in Ghana to purchase, food items and convert them in Naira. And it was shocking that even Ghana is doing worse than Nigeria in terms of access to, food costs or food prices. And I don't think Ghanaians are watching these issues keenly and upset enough. It is just something that came in the limelight, and we all know that people who have some sort of power tend to subvert the rules and do not want to. Of course, who wants to be in traffic if you have, a siren to use to get out of traffic? Who would not do that? So yes, but then I hope this conversation's pedal back so we can talk about Ghana's public transport system and, of course, the responsibilities of public servants and how they can make the system better for everybody to be treated fairly.
Yeah. Okay. So, Oreku, I mean, the last time we talked about the systems, and whenever these things come up, this is a matter that can be viewed in so many different ways. We can look at it from the substantive issue in terms of the justification for MPs wanting to have sirens and to skip the speed limit and breeze through traffic, right? But we can also look at it from the failure of our institutions. Have we failed to build a system that has a certain orderly way of doing things? Say that self-serving people who are in power wouldn't seek to benefit themselves. Like, because I mean, in other jurisdictions, these things are properly laid out, whereby nobody will even think about such a proposal going to before Parliament.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment. When you sent the news item to me, I was shocked, and I asked myself one fundamental question: where is that idea coming from? Where is that idea coming from? Who is proposing those ideas, and who are the main proponents of those ideas? Because ideas in political terrain can only catch on when you have strong forces supporting those ideas. So that was my first thing. And my second question I asked myself, why is the opposition not really talking about it? Why is the opposition not opposing it? Because if there is any bill like that going to Parliament, I'm thinking it's going to come from the government, of course, because any bill with financial implication on Ghana should have to come from the government. So I was thinking the opposition would do a good job by opposing it. But I think in this case, it came out of, I think, the media, kind of, or a whistleblower or somebody bringing it out. So then it comes down to the fact that anything that is beneficial to the entire political class, you see some level of unanimity and little opposition. I mean, I like the comments Mahama Yariga gave, but that is the after the whole issue had come out. Then Mahama Yariga really analyzed the issue very well, that it seems we the political class, and I like the way he chose his words. It was so objective in itself, although he belongs to the opposition, that we the political class, we have failed. And due to our failure, we are trying to circumvent that failure by inventing new ways of absorbing ourselves from the failure. But the issue is that they are going to create more chaos within our system by allowing over 200 plus MPs to be able to navigate our transport system with sirens. It's going to be chaos, it's going to be noise pollution. But I'm happy the bill has withdrawn. Not too happy, in the sense that this is a clear indication of systemic or the lack of structural issues in our country. And these things shouldn't even be determined, I don't think, in most cases, it should be even determined by an act of Parliament. There should be a system concerning public order, concerning the city management of the transport system, that we know through convention or best practices who should be given the right to use sirens on emergency purposes. Not even the president. The president, when he's moving, yes, should be given that siren and that protocol. But when the president is on his private solo, the president goes by himself, should go by himself. I don't know the order in Ghana. But one thing I've realized is that it looks as if our political class, whether it's NPP or NDC, they are taking us for granted. and they have always tried to test the waters. In this case, they were testing the waters. if if the if the reaction was smooth, you would have seen them pushing it through. I'm a little bit disappointed with what the speaker said. The speaker was trying to allude to the fact that there's nothing like that in front of Parliament. If I heard him right, and he was trying to blame social media, which to me was problematic from a speaker. And it also tells you that the speaker is kind of support that, although the speaker already gets all the protocol that he gets. But in this case, if you see the speaker not going so hard on this policy, and you see the speaker even blaming social media for saying things that are not true, for later for us to see that the LI was really withdrawn from.
The expression of surprise across his face seemed sincere to me when he was giving that talk and it was brought up. But what it tells me is that he probably, the bill was laid before him, but he probably didn't read the entire thing. So I can excuse him for not knowing the full content of the bill. And so that was, and so the basis for the surprise he expressed when it came up in his, when he was.
But there's a difference between you saying, I don't know, I traveled, I'm going to check, but you categorically denying it. That
maybe the idea sounded so outrageous to him that he had to deny it categorically.
Yeah, it can be.
Sometimes some things just sound so unreal to you that you can literally put your head on the guillotine for them to cut it off, just to assure people that indeed that is the case. So, I mean, anybody that hears this thing would basically was outraged by it. So I can definitely give him a pass for that.
But my question still remains: where did that idea come from? Like how? Like it's strange that an idea like that will be conceived and be put on paper, and it's strange that an idea like that will get a lot of this political class rallying around it. And if you look at what Mahama Yariga said, and it's after the fact and after the backlash, and Mahama Yariga, but if you take Mahama Yariga's reaction on its own, that's exactly the issue. But our politicians always want to circumvent the system, and they want to use other means to just make themselves more comfortable and not to tackle the problem. We have an urban transportation problem in Ghana. We have our road system is really bad. And I always say, if you go to any country, and as somebody who has traveled to like 20 plus countries in this world, you go to any country and you want to know whether the country is doing well or not, don't look at any data. Just look at the basic institutions. Their stop sign. Are people really respecting the stop sign? The road traffic issues, how people navigate basic institutions. If you see people stopping at the stop sign, that tells you that the country has order, the country has rules, and the country is really functional. What we have is that our functional state system is really not working well, and we really have to think about how we're going to restructure that. And if we cannot do that, you're going to see this over and over. This type of bill will come again in the next year. This type of ideas will come again in the next 2 years.
Usually when things like this come up, I like, and especially having a program like this to talk about pressing issues in Ghana, it almost feel like I always feel like these things are beneath our discussion. Because when you look at the merits of the issue, right, it's so basic that you expect people to know that us spending time on a very good Saturday afternoon talking about the merits of this particular case, the issue is just moot on the face of it. So it makes it difficult for you to really understand the reasoning behind these. But
it makes it difficult to even think of doing a critical analysis of it because it's so basic and straightforward.
So basic.
There's really nothing to about. It's sad. It's sad, really. I mean, I don't know. But what is sad for me is the kind of the subtle unanimity across the board.
Now, and the thing is, now they try to throw somebody under the bus for this, and that's Dr. Dominic Ayine, who I don't know the specific, I've forgotten the actual name of the committee in Parliament, but he is the chair of the committee in Parliament that is in charge of basically going through proposed legislation before they make it to the floor of Parliament. And I had a deputy minister for transport trying to suggest that the additions of MPs to the list of people who should be exempt from, the traffic and sort of speeding beyond the speed limit was added during that committee meeting. So his suggestion is that the bill that they as government presented to Parliament didn't include MPs, and that it was during the committee sitting that was added. Right. So to absolve government from such a proposal. And I listened to the chair of the committee, Dr. Dominic Ayine, and he says, yes, that proposal, but in fact, included ministers, right? But during their committee meeting, and the committee is bipartisan, it's not only NDC, but he just happens to be the chair and then an MDC MP. So he said it was during that meeting that MPs were added to the list. Even ministers added to that list is even ridiculous enough. But according to him, and he said he was not going to throw any of his members up under the bus by naming the person who proposed it. And that he has this policy where he doesn't bring the weight of his committee chairmanship on the outcome of the deliberations there. And so he most of the time remains neutral in these matters. So he didn't really have a say or an opinion on which way he wanted to go, whether he disagreed with the position or not. That's the position that he took. So it was then forwarded to Parliament. And if it's forwarded to Parliament, doesn't mean that that's the end of it. Members will still have to deliberate over it on the floor of Parliament. And I guess that's exactly what happened. But I think the information leaked out to the public, and the outrage was expressed by the public even before the MPs could, genuinely opine on it, right? But I felt that it was unfortunate that the transport minister was trying to put the blame on him, that he is the chair of the committee, and that the addition of MPs to the list was suggested within the committee, and it almost seemed like he was going to take a fall for that ridiculous idea. But yeah, I perfectly believe him. He says he typically takes a neutral position when issues are brought before the committee, and other members are the ones that would usually give an input. And if there's an amendment, they'll add the amendment and forward it to Parliament for further deliberation. So yes, that was his position on this matter. Azita, I don't know if you have anything to add on this, but other than that, we can move on to the next topic.
Oh, I just wanted to, I hope that this discussion will bring us back to important issues about, updating and improving Ghana's transport system, because we all know that in this part of the world, public servants get around with trains, public transport and all that. And it's just, creates that sort of public trust, and I know that the experiences of the political class are distinct and different, and they have privileges that the ordinary person does not. But when you have a good and efficient transport system where public servants can patronize it really does, instill some level of trust among the people. So I hope this discussion doesn't end here, but it's going to segue into more rigorous plans about what we can do about Ghana's transport system, because it's not just a political class. Judges were included, and they made the argument, if they have to get a court in term to, preside over a case, those are valid concerns, but it talks about the broader infrastructure deficit we have in the country. So we cannot, put band-aids on a structural problem and then give the political class leverage for them to navigate the system, whilst the bulk of the people, because for me, it's about the ambulance and emergency services. Half of the time, Ghanaians just take a nonchalant, it's nobody's in there, nobody's an emergency. The ambulance just want to cross.
But even in this part of the world, if an ambulance is not carrying a patient, they are not rushing to get somewhere, they don't put the lights on, right?
Of course.
There are other security or emergency type vehicles that have the lights. For instance, I've seen so many, fire, not the fire truck, but you can see a pickup that belongs to the fire department. It has the lights on it, but they typically do not turn it on. So, but if you hear what these guys are trying to do, it means that the MPs are seeking to put this on their cars so that at all times on the streets of Accra, once they step into a main road, they'll turn that thing on and be breezing through traffic. Where are you going? So, I mean, again, the thing just sounds too ridiculous that it sounds beneath us to actually be having a conversation.
It does, but Ghana, that has always been, even police officers, people, it's just like, I don't want to use this example, but it's just like the disability tag here. And I don't want to put, my brother and his military friends into trouble, but they sometimes, they get the disability tag. And so they put it on their car and then you pack people who, there are loopholes in the system here as well. But the point is that by and large, the system is self-checking and it checks for these things.
But usually there's a way you draw a hard line in the sand, right? We know that there are gray areas, but there are areas that are just black and white that you cannot maneuver, right? It's either you are in the white zone or you're in the black zone. And in this particular issue, there's no gray area, but
no, again, and I do agree with you that there's no gray area, but I just want you to understand the kind of the context we are coming up. They've done away with this, and people not even in high political office, police personnel. May God rest my uncle's soul. And I'm not trying to put my uncle on blast, but my uncle was at some point the regional police commander in Kumasi. And I remember I went to Kumasi with that was years ago. When was that? I was attempting to enter law school in KNUST. So that was around 2004. 2003, 2004, and we went there, and he had the siren, and we'll go home and he put it on, and we breezed through traffic. My point is, guys, I'm not trying to put, and my uncle is passed away. He retired and is passed away. So, but my point is that it's just a systemic issue. Yes. And their audacity is a reflection of the weak systems we have in Ghana. So we need to curb this thing. And because of, those in Parliament and MPs and ministers can make the argument, oh, we have government businesses. But I'm telling you, there are ordinary Ghanaians who are just, high ranking, like they said, pastors and all that. They subvert, they get it, and they breeze through. Even police chiefs do that. And so the system needs to check for everybody. But then broader issues of structural problems. We need Ghana's transport system to be more efficient and work. We need effective trains to be able to connect people. And if imagine you're on a train with a public a servant or a member of parliament, it creates that level of trust. So it's a really serious issue. And I'm not downplaying what you're saying. We need to take a stand. But I'm just telling you, we are seeing the MPs and the member of parliament talk about these things. But I'm telling you, certain big people or certain big men in Ghana have this siren and they use it.
I think that, like, if it's not a police escort, then there shouldn't be any, like, there shouldn't be a private vehicle that actually has that siren on its, on the roof of its on its roof, so that the people who are allowed police escort, then perhaps that can happen, right? So maybe you have the Speaker of Parliament, and maybe he has some sort of a motorcade. You have the Chief Justice and the President. At least that's understandable. But anyway, usually our show is cross-posted on a Facebook platform in Ghana. Benjamin Wayo Mahama, he posts us on his very popular platform. But at the moment, we are talking about public amenities that make people's life comfortable in Ghana. And then we just got the information that is doomsday at the moment in Ghana. And so we are not being cross-posted for the public to hear us in most of the platforms in Ghana. So again, while we are live, it's talking about the absence of things that make people's life, bearable. It's impacting our show as well as we speak. at the moment. But yeah, so I think, well, I mean, the idea that Ghana needs better infrastructure, especially better public transport system, is something that it's been with us for forever. And I don't know when that will be solved, but I think that should be every government's first priority. Making life easy in Accra, making movement easy, letting people go to and fro without any impediment. That should be one of the topmost priorities when a government comes into power. And we will talk about local government, and these issues will come in as well. Again, I always go back to the idea that, was our country really properly founded? Did we try to fit all the pieces together in a way that they will all work independently but towards an overarching goal? That is what we have to re-examine about our country again, to fit the pieces together. Otherwise, something is going on here, another thing is going on here, and they are all not working towards the same goal. So things are just amorphous. Anyway, so I mean, I would like us to move to the next issue and talk about the Afrobarometer survey that talked about the state of democracy in Ghana. And I'm sure in touching on those issues, it will bring us back to the issues that we just talked about. Now, Afrobarometer, let me try to let me go to their website, and then we can briefly look at what they really are about. That way we can trust that they are a credible institution. Okay. So let me read from their website. It says the Afrobarometer, a non-profit company limited by guarantee with headquarters in Ghana, is a Pan-African non-partisan survey research network that conducts public attitude surveys on democracy, governance, the economy, and society. We are the world's leading source of high-quality data on what Africans are thinking. Our network encompasses more than 30 national partners responsible for data collection, analysis, and in-country disseminations of findings. Regional coordination is provided by the Ghana Center for Democratic Development, the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation in South Africa, and the Institute for Development Studies at the University of Nairobi in Kenya. Michigan State University and the University of Cape Town provide technical support to the network. So it's a very credible institution that conducts surveys on the state of democracy in Ghana, among others. And so they have come up with a survey, and I would go to it very quickly. And then we will look at what it says about Ghana. Okay, give me a minute here. I shared it with you guys. I hope you've taken a look at it. But I'm going to share my screen so that our viewers can see it as well. Okay. I hope we can see it from here. All right, so let's look at the demand for democracy. I mean, as it stands right now, it feels like democracy is still overwhelmingly the preferred form of government by many Ghanaians, right? So the red one says we reject one-party state, and that is still very high at 89%. Nobody wants a one-party state. Reject one-man rule, obviously 80-something%. We don't want that. But even though, so reject military rule, 67% of Ghanaians reject military rule. It's high, but I don't think it's high enough. I think there should be a total distaste, an overwhelming distaste for military rule in any shape or form. But if we look at preferred democracy, is still high, 76%. There are no comparative numbers here for us to look at previous years. But then if you look at it just from 2012, it was around 90%, but it's taken a nosedive to 76%. So, I mean, that's a significant enough fall from 2012. Now we'll talk about some of the issues or the reasons for this fall. I don't think that is indicated in the results, but let's look at. So, I mean, conclusively, what can we say about this? Maybe, yeah. Let me take your positions on what conclusions can we draw from this? Can we characterize this as still some level of significant confidence in Ghana's democracy, given that, for instance, it has fallen? Preferred democracy has fallen from about, let's say, 90% in 2012 to about 76%. Is there a cause to be worried? What is your overall evaluation? Oreko, I'll start with you on this matter.
Oh, sorry, I was
yeah.
So it's not. So the public want. So if you look at the questions, I think they asked.
Okay.
They were asking series of questions,
Mm-hmm.
and Afrobarometer, they've been doing this for a very long time. When I was even doing my bachelor's in Legon, they were doing it, and it was I think those days was led by Jima Bodi, who was my professor. So the credibility is very good.
Yeah.
I think most of the time they want to gauge public perceptions on certain issues, and at the same time where the public stand on certain issues. So when they ask people, for example, do you prefer democracy or dictatorship? You see most of them talking about the fact that they like democracy. So people still like the idea of democracy.
Okay.
And people still like the idea of having our government being accountable. The problem we have is not the conception of democracy or the idea whether we should have democracy or not. We've gone past that. We've accepted that we want to govern ourselves with democracy, rule of law, and to me, democracy plus liberalism. So democracy is different and liberalism is different. So you put two contradictory concepts together, then you get liberal democracy. The problem in Ghana and that we have is not about the fact that we should have democracy or not. It's the fact of the functional realization and functional implementation of our democratic state. How are we going to leverage the democratic gains in such a way that we can advance the economic development of our people? We can strengthen good institutions in such a way that it will be predictable within the behavior of people. And how do we develop a system that can ensure that people will be provided with opportunities and individual capabilities will be enhanced? Those are the foundational questions when people want democracy. So Ghanaians are clear in their mind what they want. They want democracy with the assumption that democracy that we are going to practice will yield these gains, that they will be able to find jobs, that they will be able to live in a transparent and accountable system, that they will be able to have a functional and predictable institutional framework that will govern them. Those are the things that we haven't been able to accommodate with our democracy, the type of democracy we are practicing. So, of course, there's nothing surprising about the rejection of authoritarianism. There's nothing that Ghanaians reject authoritarianism. We've gone through that. We don't want that. There is also not surprising too much that the confidence people have in democracy has been going down, because since 1992, people are becoming a little bit fed up with the two political parties. Mm-hmm. And if you have, even myself, at times when I listen to myself, I say, oh wow, I'm becoming disengaged in a lot of the day-to-day politics of Ghana, not because it's not interesting, but because, like you said, Mark, there are certain things that we don't even have to talk about. It should be given to us. It counts with the democracy that we want to practice. But a lot of People are not seeing that. So for me, the main thing that confronting our country is we haven't been able to realize the functional development of democracy. We have the democracy, but the functional implementation of it, things like land tenure system, we still struggle with it. From day one of our independence, we've been struggling with our land tenure system. That we are one of the few countries in Africa where a group of people can easily go and settle somewhere. Maybe a group of people will find themselves in Dodowa somewhere in Accra, somewhere in Kumasi. Then the government institution doesn't even know anything about it because somebody sells the land. Somebody sells the land, give the land out, people build. Then after that, the government is chasing them. So those are the functional difficulties in managing.
Okay, so I'm interested in the functional dimension of democracy that you just mentioned, and I'll come back to you on that. That you need to explain that a little bit more. When you say we haven't been able to, do you mean that we haven't been able to operationalize democracy, or because I mean, and let me get Zita's initial thoughts on what we've just seen in that graph, but I believe some of the results from this survey will lead us into conversations around issues that you may refer to as the functional dimensions of our democracy. But Zita, is this sort of a vote of no confidence in democracy, or given that they're still above average, there's no cause for concern?
No, there is a cause for concern when you look at preference for democracy. So I've watched a Joy FM report where they did a comparative years, 10 years apart. Preference for democracy, 2011 to 2013, it was 82%, and then in 2021 to 2023, which informs the current report by Afrobarometer, it's a 76%. There is a 6% drop. However, when you go to satisfaction with democracy, you have 2011, 2013, you have 74%. Currently, 2021, 2023, you have 51%, a 23% drop. So even though people prefer democracy, when it comes to how satisfied they are with democracy, the satisfaction is low. If you're having 51%, which is, moving from 74% 10 years ago to now, which is 51%, then that means that people are losing trust in democracy. And the interesting tweak of this whole report is the fact that rejection of military rule. 10 years ago, it was 86% of people rejected military rule. Right now, it is per 2021 to 2023, 68%. So increasingly, and we have all seen what has happened in Niger, in Burkina Faso, Mali. We are seeing a new crop of military intervention that is a bit more appealing than what is in the past or what we saw in the past. And so we can't just look at just preference for democracy. We must juxtapose it with satisfaction. And even though people prefer it, the satisfaction level is not good because it's only 51%. And again, this preference for some level of military rule and military intervention, that is how we must contextualize it. So when we contextualize it in that sense, then we know that things are not looking good, and the level of trust people have in the current democratic system and how it is delivering, it is not the best.
Okay, so Oreku, as Zita just mentioned, when we come to the aspect of the survey that talks about the satisfaction for democracy, obviously it's taking a significant hit from, let's say, the high of about, let me look at this more carefully. Country is a democracy. Okay, yeah, people agree, but it looks like the satisfaction and the question of whether it is a democracy, they go hand in hand. Say that if there's a decline in people's perception of how democratic our country is, then there's a parallel decline in their satisfaction with the democracy that we are practicing. I mean, how do we explain this? Because I mean, there were times where I was tempted to think that perhaps people don't understand what democracy is, and that they are equating perhaps democracy with economic well-being, say that when their economic situation or their living conditions haven't improved, there's a tendency for them to lose faith in democracy. But this is actually painting a different picture. It's demonstrating that people understand what democracy is and what institutions and how those institutions are supposed to function when a country is regarded as a democracy. Said that when they are losing or when those institutions are eroded, then they feel that, okay, we are not practicing a democracy. And then it goes along with the lack of trust in democracy.
Want me to talk?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I understand the arguments that have been presented, and I agree in the sense that when people, in most cases, talk about democracy, regardless of the ideals of democracy, regardless of the definition of democracy, regardless of the subtypes in democracy, when normal people are talking about democracy and their satisfaction, it is inextricably linked with economics. It is inextricably linked with how our political elites are governing the country in terms of corruption, in terms of institutional responsibility, institutional agility, in terms of governance. All those things are inextricably linked with the satisfaction of democracy. I don't know the type of questions that the Afrobarometer asks, but I would be surprised if those questions that link to satisfaction is not bringing these questions out. Because if you have your youth being unemployed, if you have majority significant amount of Ghanaians unemployed, you have a broken system in the area of corruption, and you have road system which is horrible and bad, that every day people are dying on the roads, people are going to be dissatisfied with democracy. And it's going to go on and on and on. But I don't want to draw a thick dichotomy between the ideals of democracy and the practice of democracy, because when people, the day-to-day person, want to see their elected officials go to parliament, debate about issues that will enhance their well-being and their development. So you can satisfy the ideals of democracy, but if you don't make concrete effort to link it to economic advancement, you might not get it. So by Ghana, what we have is that both the ideals of democracy have not been achieved the way it's supposed to be, regardless of the type of democracy you take. And at the same time, the transformation and the economic gains and institutional agility and institutional functionality in the area of respect for the people, accountability and transparency, all have not really been achieved in a way that will satisfy people.
Yeah, but isn't that the very appeal of democracy? The idea that if all its institutions are functioning perfectly, automatically, it's going to generate a sense of well-being among the people. Because I always say that the origin of people don't understand the origin of democracy. And it was a revolt, basically, right? Among the downtrodden in Athens. And so some land reforms happened. Properties were redistributed among sort of the upper class and then the lower classes of society. And they began to build this system of accountability, essentially, to hold, people in positions of authority or the powerful in check. So fundamentally, democracy is a system of accountability at the very bottom of it. That's the original motive of the system of government that came to be known as democracy, where eventually public officials were selected by lot, basically by a lottery system, so that nobody becomes entrenched in a certain position to become corrupt in any shape or form. So, yeah, I mean, you could be there this year, you'll be one of the lawgivers, or you could be a judge, or whatever may be the case. And then another year, somebody else, so that the system doesn't breed corruption. And the idea was that by this system or mechanism for accountability put in place, it would inure to maybe a just society and to some extent an acceptable, condition of living among people. Because I feel like, once people are able to accept their condition and cannot put the blame on anybody else, they become content with their lifestyle. But if you look at your leaders living lavishly, and then you look at your own condition and it's in a deplorable state, it's easy for you to point fingers, even if that is not the case. So I think, yeah, the democracy's appeal is by virtue of its functioning, or its various instruments and institutions functioning properly to bring about, if you like, and basically automate the benefits that we expect from them.
So, Mark, I I I agree with you to some extent, but it's more, to me, it's more complex because
Okay.
democracy as an ideal is hanging here, then it's hanging up there, and our reality is to catch up to that ideal. So
Yes,
if you don't make effort to how do you call it, spread the spoils of democracy, it will not. So it's not an automatic thing. And that is why, if you look at historically in a lot of societies, the early societies that practice democracy, at any point in time, there are a lot of people that were marginalized by the democratic architecture. And there were a lot of people that were living in impoverishment and poverty. Talk about women, talk about African Americans within one of the best democratic system that we've had in recent times. But because the ideal is there, you can always try to aspire and catch up to that. So that ideal of equality, rule of law.
Yeah, but you see, we are going into a very complicated argument, because I think there's an argument that can be made that democracy is not about justice.
Yeah,
right?
that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think I disagree with you. That's what I'm saying. So that's why. So the middle class, if you look at the data, the middle class in Ghana has been expanding. So if you look at the middle class in Ghana from 1980s to now, it's really expanding. If you look at the data throughout, it's expanding. And it means that some people are benefiting from the fortunes. Like the same way I went to Cape Town last time, and if you isolate the Black population from South Africa, the white population is really doing very, very well. And if you are in Cape Town, you see the beauty of capitalism, which in one way or the other can be linked to liberalism. But at the same time, you see poverty beneath that big capitalist infrastructure. So what I'm saying is that when we don't practice our democracy well, and if we don't make efforts to expand the fortunes of democracy to everybody, it might still be hanging within a certain group and elite. So some people in Ghana, some groups are benefiting from our current democratic dispensation we have. They are making huge money. They are doing good. Problem is that majority of our people are not benefiting from it. So then there's something fundamentally wrong with the way we have conceptualized the ideals of democracy, the way we are implementing it, and the way we are ensuring the functional impact of our system and our institution and governance architecture on the day-to-day reality of the people. So basically, that's all my point.
Okay, I think the safest way to always go about public discussions about democracy is perhaps to go with Robert Dale's very, conventional conception of democracy, as in, the ideals that you're talking about, maybe equality and justice and everything. But so maybe people are not, feeling that the spoils of the system are spread to them. They're not, and so maybe the growing disillusionment with democracy. But again, the lack of trust is reflected here, where, for instance, MPs that in terms of elected officials, how often do they listen to their citizens? And the indication is that 14% of people think that yes, MPs do listen, and then 35% for local government and councillors. So it seems like there's more confidence in local government than in the MPs. And that shouldn't be surprising because of the role of MPs, right? But there's, of course, again, there's a misconception about the role of MPs in our system. which I would not entirely put the blame on the electorate or the constituents, but it's the way MPs have presented themselves when they are seeking that office. They have promised things that are not within the mandate of an MP, and so there's some expectation from electorates, from their MPs, which is not consistent with their job description. But I think this should lead us into our conversation about local government that I was going to talk about, because there's some level of confidence in local government compared to MPs, right? And that should be rightfully the case. But our local government system, in my opinion, is non-existent. So let me play that video of the news report about a chief who embarked on a road repair that led to his arrest. And then we can have a conversation about the roles of the local government in, or even individuals in pursuing development within their localities.
The chief, who was arrested and granted bail over the weekend, insists that he embarked on the initiative after authorities failed to address the road situation, which has been causing flooding in the area, despite persistent appeals from motorists and residents. Channel 1 News' Ashanti regional correspondent Hafiz Tijani reports.
For years, residents and motorists in Nahinso, a community in the Asukwa municipality that borders Bosuntri district and Oforikro municipality, have lamented the poor road network. The road construction was abandoned after the drains were built, which, according to road users, has worsened their plight.
Nsuo to a nsuo timi ba mfie nyina ha no enye nsuo kwan ha yenye nsuo kwan. We are told that somewhere in the past omutu anwea wo ha na ha twa amra nsuo to na abeta ha nti ha no nye nsuo kwan nti ye kwade na eye no boa na oboa ye nyese bia wo ha ye oboa ye pa can say assembly no omo ya aware of the situation here and obi an na just oboa ye nti sana na adome no oboa ye besere wo mo a omunya na no omo aye na problem ha no onso obo ma
enye kura o ETS ni kwan die bla ye bere ha nsuo to kura dia enye kura ma ni mu ha nyina no ma yifi e wo ha ono a na be de chippings begua eni mu anum so sa ya di akwan wi de esre sa ban be ye hu bibi ma ye na kwan de enye kura ma ye bre nsuo to aye bre papa nsuo ni yirifa odan yi ba kwan nim sei na makas ni nyina ka chirigi si esisi fom na anantia ba yefifiem tiama ahana nyekura.
Pits created on portions of the road due to alleged sun-winning activities pose significant threats to road users. These pits often result in flooding on sections of the road, making movement difficult and affecting nearby houses. The chief of Nahinso, Nana Ado Buaman, began filling the pits and the road to make it motorable despite failed attempts to get authorities to fix the problem. However, some officials from the Asukwa Municipal Assembly stopped him, emphasizing that he had no permission to do so. He was arrested by police, but later granted bail over the weekend.
I know that they are not ready to come. But I also want to remind them that this place, some time ago, my predecessor,
Okay, we're having a problem with the feed. But yes, so this is the chief speaking, who had been arrested because apparently he had no authorization to repair the road. He's a chief of the area. I mean, it raises the question of the role of chiefs in the development of our communities. So if a chief cannot lead the repair of a road, who has the right to do so? But even if he didn't have the authorization and he needed some form of permit, did it warrant an arrest? Did the politicians in this case, who are controlling the municipal assemblies, think that it was an indictment on them for a chief to take on what people would generally perceive as their responsibility? So Zita, I'll let you take the lead on this.
Sure. It's unfortunate that the chief had to go through this humiliating experience. However, for me, when I wrote my master's thesis on the extractive sector, one of the key issues that have always been a problem in Ghana is customary laws versus, constitutional law. There's always this gray area, especially when it comes to land and things like that. For instance, and one of the problems Ghana have with the whole Galamsey, which is for those who are non-Ghanaians watching, is the illegal small scale or artisanal mining, is the fact that there's always this contention about, the land and who owns the land. And from a customer perspective, lands are owned by the people but held in trust by the chief or the king or whoever the traditional leader is in that area. However, constitutionally, the laws indicate that the government has control over the land. And so my point of citing this whole issue is there has always been this contention between customary laws and the constitutional law, and there's this gray area. And so I feel like even though he is the chief of that area, according to the customary law, the land belongs to the people and the chief is holding it in trust. And therefore, because he's holding it in trust, he has the ability to take certain initiatives. Those initiatives, again, also counter some of the constitutional processes. And that is what, to me, is problematic. And we must figure out that gray area, because I believe what happened to him is unfair. Again, he did not seek the legal permit. The key issue is how bureaucratic are those legal permits. And it's the same thing that happens with, and I'm going back to our artisanal mining example, that is one of the biggest challenges Ghana has with its artisanal or small scale mining or galamsey permits as well. Everything is extremely bureaucratic and you do not get your permit in time. And like the people in the area have said, it's a death trap. It is causing a lot of problems. They have taken levies. They've not fixed the road. So I believe this is just a way of the assembly flexing their power over the chief and trying to intimidate the chief. We are supposed to look into processes. If individuals or leaders in a particular area want to undertake development initiative, how quick is the process? How transparent is the process? How easy is it for them to get permits whilst, they assemble to solve those problems? I think it's unfortunate, but I'm happy this news item has made it has been made public. And for me, we need to figure out the contention, the gray area between customary law and the constitution or the laws of the land, because there's always a friction. And from a customary perspective, the chief is not wrong. Land belongs to the people. He's holding it in trust, and therefore he has some level of authority. But once you start applying the constitution, then it becomes problematic. So for me, that is what came into mind when I was looking at that particular news item.
So, I mean, Oreko, is this the age-old conflict between, for instance, institutions of the modern state and the traditional institutions? Or because, I mean, this is something that you'd have expected that it could easily work out if you're a local chief and the local assembly. If you feel that road construction is supposed to be done by the local government and they're not doing it, and you as a chief has the wherewithal to embark on that project, shouldn't this be an easy thing to solve between the two institutions?
I don't think there is an issue with the bifurcation of the state system that we're practicing. I think on a normal day, this shouldn't be an issue.
Okay.
On a normal day, the chief wouldn't have even gone to the extent of doing what he planned to do. But let us also not out of the frustration and system failure, allow another level of system failure. Because there's no way we should allow anybody to construct a public road which is to serve everybody without permission. It shouldn't happen. So
but the permission here, that's what I feel that could have been easily resolved, because I mean the chief is an authority figure, even though formally he may not have that type of authority, but he's an authority figure. And so if he started constructing a road, right, and the local assembly felt that he needed a permit, is this not something that could have been easily resolved without it coming to him being put behind bars? That's the difficulty that I have here, that it wasn't just some random guy that went about digging trenches or something like that. Right.
Yeah, but if you, regardless, if the chief, I don't think the chief has authority in this instance, because the laws are clear. But assuming the chief has authority, he still has to do it.
Yeah, but I get that. He
According
has
to the building code. So we have
different way. Yeah, he has authority in a different way. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, the authority in different. So that's what I'm saying. So we have codes in construction. We have it in the country. We have building codes. So if you don't come and seek approval, we cannot even monitor the level of we cannot bring structural engineers, quantity surveyors. We need all of them to be there if you are doing something for the public. So if you don't come and seek approval, we will not even know. And in this case, but it comes down to the fact that those who are supposed to do their jobs are not doing their jobs. That's what I'm saying, that on a normal day, this shouldn't be an issue. If those guys, the assembly, because assembly has the ultimate authority over some of these things. They have to do small roads. They have to ensure basic stuff within the district. They are not doing that. A chief who thinks that the land that his people are sitting on is not really properly developed, decide to take the initiative. So the idea is good. The intention of the chief is good. How he went about it is the issue. But the district assembly is also, like, I really don't know how to handle this issue, because I don't think we should allow anybody to manufacture anything for the public without going through the process.
No, I agree.
At the same time, you have a system that has failed and nobody is doing anything. And when you have good intention, that's when they apply the law. So that's why it makes it a little bit tricky as to who is at fault here.
Mm-hmm. So for me, my issue here is not even, because when it comes to the law and the proper way of doing things, right, in terms of having the right permit to construct a road or put up any structure, I think that shouldn't be a problem. And that if that was the only problem associated with what the chief was doing, it should have been easily resolved. I don't understand why there's no line of communication between the chief and the district assembly. Say that if he had this intention, he couldn't have asked for their technical help.
Yeah, right? And we don't know the details. Like, we don't know exactly.
So I want to believe that there's already some sort of friction or conflict between the institution of the chief and the local assembly. Otherwise, this sounds very odd to me, that he would just begin to construct a road without any form of consultation with the district assembly. He may have reached out to them in some capacity, and perhaps they blew him off, and he decided to take matters in his own hands and say, if they're not going to do it, I'll do it for my people. But
the mere fact that he decided to even take, so I agree. Mm-hmm. So let's assume he applied and the people say, no, we don't want you to do. I don't think the chief should have gone ahead and do it.
Yes,
so regardless of the circumstance, mm-hmm. so long as he doesn't have permit, he has no business.
He shouldn't do it.
He shouldn't do it.
But you have to also, you cannot ignore the tradition of a chief feeling that he is responsible to his people. Say that if there's a certain condition that is debilitating for his people, he feels that it's within his right as a chief to solve that problem. So for me, listen, I think that as long as we still maintain our chieftaincy institution, our local government system should find a way of working it into the practical working of our local government system. Say that, yes, legally, he cannot go about just constructing buildings and roads without the requisite permit. Maybe it can lead to structural problems or functional problems associated with these infrastructure, right? and everything has to work properly. But it brings me to this question of how is our local government structured? Because it sounds like we have a local government system that is still tied in a very strong way to the central government. And I can see signs of that in this particular incident, that the guy, I think it wasn't really about permit only, but it was also about the image that would portray in light of the ruling government, right? How is that going to reflect on the ruling government that a chief has taken it upon himself to construct a road that everyone believes that is their responsibility? I think that also had to do with his arrest. There was a political question in there. So again, maybe we should talk about the nature of our local government system and how are we going to, because I mean, in America and other places, local governments are basically where it all started from. In our case, it started from the top and came down. So Zita, I don't know if look, let's talk about our local government system and how is it supposed to function along with the central government to prevent some of these things.
Like in Ghana, things really, like you, Mark, you've always said this thing. I think that with the way, laws exist in Ghana, the implementation of laws are always problematic. It's just like we picked from our colonial masters and then we pasted it without understanding our own customs, because prior to colonial rule we had rules. We have and I always say that our chieftaincy system is a form of democracy. I believe that, and that is what I say. Our chieftaincy system was a form of democracy. It is just different from Eurocentric form of democracy. People had the ability. So for me, I stand by the fact that there's this contention and toggle between traditional or customary laws and constitutional laws, and this is where it is happening, because the chief by default understand from the customary perspective that the people own the land, I hold it in trust, and I can make this decision. And it's the same thing that plays out when you think of galamsey or artisanal small scale mining and the issue of rights, who is able to give permission and all that. That is the issue. So for me, it's not about the local assemblies sharpening well. I think as a country, we need to rethink this whole concept of democracy and constitutional law, and how that will marry and merge well with our existing traditional or customary laws. We can't throw it away because our customary laws have existed in years. And it is the same thing with many chiefs have come under fire. I'm going to use my own traditional area, the Aflawu chief, who raised concerns about e-blocks and was disrespected by Nanado. And should he have fundraised in Aflawu, let's say, all of us, Kwamla Dumo, the Dumo families from Aflawu and all that, and let's say they get us to chip in and they do the e-block, would the Aflawu chief be arrested for, building the e-block that he has asked the government and even directly petition the president? Oh, you said we're going to do this. It's been years. It is not here. And then he was disrespected. So for me, my thing is we need to find a way of marrying our customary laws with our the practice of this Eurocentric form of democracy and all that. We need to find a way to marry both. If not, things will not work. We will always have this tension, and the chief is right to an extent, but again, he is trespassing when it comes to the constitutional law, and it's just not kind of working. For me, that's where my mind is.
Okay. Oreko, are you able to come in here? Because I want us to look at it from sort of the structure of our government system and how maybe perhaps that makes it difficult for local initiatives to initiate or individuals or groups within our localities to initiate any form of development projects.
So our chieftaincy system, the chieftaincy system is part of our governance system in Ghana. We have a Chieftaincy Act that actually explains exactly their roles and their responsibilities. The only thing is that,
but don't be like the lawyers that when we talk about these things,
let me finish. Yeah. It's just that the Constitution has made the chieftaincy system a subordinate institution to the current or the government system. My issue is that anytime I talk about a functional state, the chiefs are part of the mess. The chieftaincy system is part of the mess.
Yeah.
They hold the vital factor in economic development, the land.
Mm-hmm.
They have shown that they have really mismanaged the land system that we have entrusted in them, and it cut across.
Yeah, but that's because the chieftaincy, the accountability instrument of the chieftaincy institution no longer exists.
Exactly. So and there is government is supposed to check them. If you look at the all the land acts and the land codes, before even somebody will build, the municipality there should be able to check what type of building is put there, the plan is there, but we haven't been able to hold those people accountable. We haven't been able to actually have a conversation with how land is even allocated and how land is used in our country. So the mess, they are part of the mess.
No, definitely.
Because it is a huge institution, regardless of how we've made it a subordinate to our legal order. It is still a huge institution. The chieftaincy system has huge influence. It just happened that we haven't been able to marry them comfortably. And also, the chieftaincy system is part of the corruption that we talk about in our country.
No, absolutely.
So in that sense, I really don't want to make an argument that we should have a way of how do you call it? Should have talked to that chief in a way that would have worked. Because the mess in our institutional response is due to the lack of good land tenure system, due to the fact that people just sell land anyhow they want to sell it. People just develop anywhere they want to develop. The government failed and the chieftaincy system also failed. So any mess you talk about, they are part of it.
Yeah. Okay,
And
but you hold your thoughts there, but I agree with you. I think Ghana needs land reforms. The land tenure system that we currently operate is a monumental failure. It's causing huge problem. I mean, most of our problems in Ghana are shared with land and the money, because there's really no sense of responsibility when it comes to the sale and allocation of land. Now, the chieftaincy institution, right? The authority of the chief came from our ancestors. And chieftaincies or chiefs were held accountable by our ancestors. So they got their authority from their ancestors, more or less from, let me say, a metaphysical realm. It wasn't secular. But that no longer exists. Beginning from indirect rule, the authority of the chief was then coming from the colonial masters. So that spiritual authority that kept chiefs in check no longer existed from the period of indirect rule all the way to democracy. Now the authority of the chief is vested in them by the constitution. So if you give a chief authority and the system that initially kept it in check no longer exists, then there's a field day for the chiefs. So they can go around selling land because there is no repercussion, right? There's no consequence of a chief misconducting himself as we know it today. Back in the day, chiefs were distooled when they misconducted themselves. I don't think that practice is still going on in so many places. Ordinary people, like the chief's constituents could actually spearhead his distoolment. Now it probably has to take maybe basically a chief who has higher authority over another chief to initiate the process of distoolment, and is usually associated with insubordination and things like that. But a chief can no longer be distooled because he misconducted himself or he didn't hold himself accountable to his people. that authority no longer exists. So I don't understand why we should still vest interest, if like authority of land to people who can no longer be held accountable by anybody, not by the gods or anybody, right? So that's why they are going around converting farmlands to galamsey sites. Traditionally, if it was back in the day where the spiritual or the authority of the chief came from the ancestors, he dare not do that because he believed that the spirits of the ancestors will visit harm on him as well. So since we shifted to a secular regime, there's no reason why we should leave our lands in the hands of an institution that has no body to account to. So I think Ghana seriously needs land reform. But for me, when I was talking about the incorporation of the chieftaincy institution to work seamlessly with the local government system, is that, and again, I'm always reluctant when it comes to the legal issues, like, right, this is in the law, or the chieftaincy access, this is the role of a chief. But in practice, how can we work our local government system in a way that we can utilize the authority of the chief in terms of in practice? My solution to all this is to truly decentralize. Basically, maybe make the role of the chief executive an elective position, non-partisan, so that anybody who wants to become, for instance, a district chief executive, you would have to build a coalition or some consensus locally to become one. I don't see a situation where an elected chief executive would be antagonistic with the local chief, because somehow, even though the chief may not have formal authority, you require some level of buy-in or endorsement from him to properly functionally. So I think we have to find a mechanism that will make local government practice function seamlessly with the chieftaincy institution. You can spell out their role and responsibilities, the limits of their formal power, but there has to be some incentive or some give and take situation that these two can work together practically, rather than just what exists in our books as this is what a chief can do and this is what a chief. But functionally, how can we let these things work seamlessly? So, I mean, that's my position on this.
Mark, that's what I think. I think we should just make them ceremonial. I really, this whole idea of going back, bringing those, like, I think they should be ceremonial, and their role should remain there. Custodian of our culture, custodian of all those things, they should just be ceremonial. Because at the end of the day, democracy works when you have responsibility and accountability.
Yes.
We don't give them our taxes. We don't give them money. And any money we are going to give them is going to be at the behest of the state to give them money to just protect our customs and our traditions. And the state should hold them to account. If the state system is to fail, then they can take advantage of it and also fail. But we shouldn't allow the chieftaincy system to drag us into failure. So issue comes to land. We shouldn't allow any chief in Ghana to sell land and use all the proceeds. And after they've used all the proceeds,
you shouldn't even be able to sell land, period.
You say what?
You shouldn't even be
that's
able
what I'm saying.
to sell land. Yeah.
I'm just explaining the current situation. Yeah. They sell the land, use all the money. This same chief going to construct the road, all those people in that area, he particularly or whoever he succeeded, has sold all the land to them. They have lived there, and none of this money go to government. And after that, these people go and live, and you call government, come and build roads. It is difficult for any government to do that. And it's also part of the failure of our government system. Because we don't control how our population is moving, we don't control them. Other than that, there are some places in Accra that we shouldn't even allow people to live there. By the time the government system will realize a chief somewhere has sold land, you have 500 people living in those areas, and all of a sudden they ask government to come and construct roads. It's difficult. No government in this world can do that. But the government has failed in managing the movement of the population. The government has failed in making sure that these chiefs will not sell land anyhow they want it. And the government has failed in the area of money, ensuring that when even land are sold, the money should be used to develop the land. Like you went back into our ancestral world or the ancestral time.
Yeah.
Those days when chiefs sell land, they used money in case there are proceeds. Those days there were no proceeds, there were no money. But in case money, they use it to develop the land. Now they use all the money and expect somebody to come from somewhere to come and develop the land in terms of roads. How? So that's why, to me, they should just be ceremonial.
No,
they shouldn't be giving any huge road. We should just give them money to protect our culture and to hold our customs.
No, I agree, certainly. No, I agree with the ceremonial aspect. I think that they should be ceremonial, but they have this sort of default authority in a way over people, right? And that was what I was saying, that we should be able to work our local government in a way that you can utilize that automatic authority that exists within the institution to facilitate local development, rather than giving them any formal authority in that sense, right? So I mean, I think we've exhausted this issue as well. And today our conversation has been largely more or less on neutral issues concerning Ghana's future, right? We haven't been very political on today's show. And I think it's fun. Sometimes we just need to have conversations about more a bipartisan approach to conversations about the future of our country. And that is exactly what we have done this afternoon. And again, there was doomsday in Ghana. And so we weren't cross-posted on our usual platform. No, they said doomsday.
Doomsday,
yeah, doomsday. That's
not doomsday, please.
Yeah. So, but so those who were able to watch us this afternoon, we thank you very much for being with us. Zita, thank you for being sort of a loyal panelist. You've been consistent. You've made it every Saturday since this show started, and I appreciate that. Reku, thanks for, as usual, bringing your intellectual force on board tonight, and also giving us the balance that we have looked for in a while. So, have a lovely weekend.
Thank you, Zita. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah. Okay.
Take care.
So I hope to meet you guys again next week. Yeah.
You let a yum 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 yum. Naya pere matinaya pese. You let a yum 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 yum. Naya pere muna kapera chora kakisa we are hele pere balungna baire tupa ani imping tuna santa tapage bayu tugtele masankele yura babantu bidara we are hele pere bongna baire tupa ani asikulja tuna ikinakine kille sikulja kine titatia undile sikulja dia satasua zadle sikulja suwa korakua kole sikulja kuwa